2 p.m. Eastern time. MLSsoccer.com will have a watch-along show for this one. Myself and Susanna will be on there alongside Pamo Duka, who coached in Canada, played in Canada, is the big brother to one Alfonso Davies and many other of the players on this team, and a current professional coach who will help us sort of wade through the waters during that game. So we will be on the entire time that game's on. Of course, Club and Country Today is back at 5 p.m. Eastern time tomorrow, live on Twitter Spaces, and then as a podcast. Doyle, get us started here. Canada's first Men's World Cup game in 36 years. We are finally here after a ton of buildup, longer than just the draw, because I think we all felt safe about where Canada was about a year ago. What is the feeling? What is sort of the thought process going into tomorrow?
It's kind of halfway between, okay, we're playing with house money and we actually have the personnel that could do real damage here, because the international game is so vastly different than the club game. If you could defend low and hard, and you're good in the air, and you're good on set pieces, and your goalkeeper can take 2 steps without falling on his face, and then you could hit on the counter, you're going to cause damage. And we saw that all throughout qualifying. Canada was arguably better against Mexico and the U.S. than they were against the smaller teams in the region, because they didn't have to carry the game. And when you can do that and defend deep like that, and you have a couple of central midfielders in Atiba and Eustachio who can hit a ball that springs a break, and then you have Jonathan David, Alfonso Davies, Tajon Buchanan, guys like even Cavallini, Kyle Larin. He hasn't been good recently, but he was amazing last year. They have so many guys who can hurt you on the break and who are determined to do it together. They have strong dark horse, cause somebody pain, get out of the group type of energy. Though I will add the asterisk that John Herdman has said that Alfonso Davies is good to go. John Herdman lied a ton during qualifying about health issues around his team. He is so about that gamesmanship. I wouldn't be shocked if Davies was in the lineup. I wouldn't be shocked if he was not in the lineup. And obviously, he's their best. All due respect to Jonathan David, he's Alfonso Davies is Canada's best player. If he cannot go, that lowers their ceiling considerably.
For Canada to win this game, what does the game need to look like? What needs to go well for them?
I think the intensity level, first and foremost. They were so locked in. Think about that game up on that concrete in Hamilton where they beat the U.S. 2-0. The U.S. didn't play badly that game. They made 2 mistakes, but Canada were so locked in that when those mistakes happened, they instantly punished. And that's the Canada that I need to see in this game, because they're not going to carry the ball against Belgium. They're not going to. Canada would be thrilled with 30% possession in this game or lower. If they're over 30%, it probably means something has gone wrong. So I just think that they have been so good for 2 years now playing against the ball, and that's because they've played without fear and they've played with purpose while they're doing that. That's the version of Canada that we need to see in this game, and that version of Canada has a real shot against a Belgian team that is not great along that back line anymore.
No, everyone on the show follows most of the players in this Canadian team often. And I do think one thing we've seen from countries who necessarily, I don't want to say they're not often in a World Cup, but they are not considered one of the traditional World Cup teams. Add on top of that the 2 teams I'm thinking about now are Qatar and Iran, are both tactically astute, defend first teams. I thought one thing that hurt them in their performances is they had to think too much in a very, very big moment. And the more you have to think and the more methodical you have to be when the world is watching you and your country is counting on you, that it creates more risk and it lowers the floor for what can happen. And I think that there's something similar with Canada, that they will be a methodical team. They will be they will be a thinking team on a bigger stage than most of these players have ever been. Is that a real concern? Or is this group of players relatively immune to that?
I don't know if they're relatively immune to it, but we almost never saw, other than the first game of qualifying, we almost never saw them overthinking things. They seem to have very simple and very clear principles of play, and I think when you have that simplicity and that clarity, and you have that talent, it's a really good mixture for international soccer. They won the Ocho. It was not a mistake. They're not here by accident.
The bigger issue they've had over the last few months has been for players who have only ever played internationally in CONCACAF because of COVID, and then the way Canada had to qualify, just understanding how other players around the world play. It's leaned a lot, I think, early in games on Kamal Miller and Alistair Johnson. If they can get out of the first 15 minutes without giving up a goal, and then they are aggressive in the moments they get in transition to be direct centrally, to go after that back line as Doyle talked about in those center backs. I think that's the key to them getting a win. This is also emotional, right? First time in 36 years. And it's not like, oh, we built this golden generation. It's a lot of players who have kind of grinded through it themselves to get there. And now the CSA is catching up and the sport's catching up. Who are we excited to see tomorrow? Like, who are you going to be keyed in on during the anthem? What's the moment that you all are waiting for where it's like going to feel real or emotional or excited or whatever you've got?
I like that anthem question. That's a really good way to put it. On the field, because I do want to come back, because I like what you said there about the anthem, the pregame, and all of that. On the field, I am really excited, and for all Canadian fans, I think they should be really excited to see really any of their attackers in open space against Belgium's defenders, because there's a chance that at least two of Belgium's three center backs are on the very back end of their career in Toby Alderweireld and Jan Vertonghen. Yes, the ones that you were watching 10 years ago for Tottenham could potentially both start for Belgium. So I think if you're a Canadian fan, to think about the pace and the energy of really anybody in your squad in transition against them is exciting.
Susanna, who are you looking forward to seeing out there for the first time at the World Cup?
Oh man. I think like I am a huge Oso fan, Jonathan Osorio, and he's talked extensively, certainly leading up to this tournament, about just like how meeting this moment, how big this is. I absolutely love the Canadian national anthem. I think it is like arguably the best national anthem. I sing it at the top of my lungs, even though I'm clearly not Canadian. But I just think it's a beautiful song. And I feel like there was such good positive vibes surrounding this Canada team during qualifiers, and then that kind of, as things off the field kind of sort of took away from that. I want to see those good vibes back. I want to see that solidarity back, because at a certain point last year or earlier this year, it was like these were all guys that were playing together. They were playing for each other. And not that has changed, but I think that there were some off the field distractions that kind of like took the shine off of all of the good feelings around this Canada team. And I want to see that back in this moment. I want them to meet this moment, because this is so huge for them and for the country. And so I think it's going to be, I hope like when that anthem starts, like it just hits them all right in the feels. I think it will. It's going to hit me in the feels for sure.
Mark Anthony K agrees with you about the song. He screams it every time he's a part of this team, and when they play it. Doyle, you have anyone else?
I love it.
Like, honestly, that just the thought of Alfonso Davies in the open field, like that. He plays brilliantly for Bayern Munich, and that has been a fun team to watch since he's been there. They're not a counterattacking team, and like he's really good in possession. Obviously, you don't get to play for Bayern Munich if you're not good in possession, but he is like one of the greatest players I've ever seen on the counterattack. So I'm just hoping that we get one or two moments of Alfonso Davies in full flight, and maybe Tejan or Richie Larea coming down the other side. And those guys just cutting the Belgians up, man. That would be dope.
Yeah. I want Alfonso Davies to be as big a superstar in Canada and the world coming out of this World Cup as possible. So I'm in favor of that as well. I'll close out with the obvious one, Atiba Hutchinson. 39 years old.
I thought you were going to say Brooklyn's own Jonathan David.
Listen, I'm impressed right now. I'm excited for Jonathan David, but Atiba debuted in professional soccer before Jonathan David was born. So I think Atiba has earned a mention at this point, and he was the one, when you talk about forced his own career, there was no path for him, dealt with a lot of the dark times for Canada, traveled, was in bad games, got crushed down in Honduras, dealt with Gold Cups that they thought they should have won games against the U.S. and didn't, ups and down, coaching changes, everything else, and thought his international career was over. If he starts, or if he appears in all the group stage games, he'll pass 100 caps. At 39 years old, he'll be the oldest player to make his World Cup debut. It's everything you want, and he's deserved it. And he's one of those players that I love to watch. He just covers ground smooth. He reads the game. He's always where his team needs him to be, and he's going to have to be tomorrow. And alongside Steven Eustachio, I think those two can be special. You guys talked about transition. They're going to be the two to launch it, but I think they could win some of this midfield battle and take a little bit of the pressure off their team. Either way, it's going to be a fun one. And then we are back here for Club and Country today, every single day.